that Thomas Tuchel is not Todd Bowley's man. And if there's someone to lay blame at this year, they won't do it to the dressing room. They won't be put on the board because it's new, it's fresh. It'll be put on Thomas Tuchel. And we saw when the pressure built, eventually he was happy to leave PSG. And I worry that we might see a similar situation here, where if Chelsea starts slowly, or if in any way it's not going the way people want it to go at that football club, you will see a change because it's the most disposable thing they can change. Well, Nostradamus. That's not a word, is it? It's too early for this. I haven't had my coffee yet. Chelsea have announced then that they have parted company with Thomas Tuchel. Yeah, there's a lovely... the picture they've chosen is not in the highest quality, and that shouldn't bother me as much as it does. But there you are, look, Thomas Tuchel, Chelsea Football Club today, parted company with Thomas Tuchel. You've probably seen the news. The new ownership group reaches 100 days since taking over the... Why is that? That's a bizarre thing to put in. As if this was always going to be an assessment made on 100 days, regardless of when they took over. I don't know, very businessy, very keep it out of a statement that involves the sacking of a manager, I feel like. They're going to appoint a new head coach swiftly. Well, good, because you just got rid of one mid-season, so you probably... Oh, yeah, swiftly is the word. I don't even know who swiftly is. Anyway, so yeah, he's gone. There's lots of things to talk about. Is it surprising that Tuchel's left? Not really. Is it a bit harsh? Potentially. But is it the right move? And potentially is that as well. Let's talk about all of it then. Let's go through some of the details with him. I feel for him in a way because I think the recruitment wasn't great. And I actually think the outgoings at Chelsea have been a bigger issue for him. No more so than Petr Cech. And I look back to the Super League era, an era we all enjoyed. And Petr Cech in that time, Tuchel sort of said, I'm here to manage the club. And Petr Cech took a lot of the bullets, I felt, for Thomas Tuchel at that time and sort of put himself in front of the fans and said, we'll sort this, we'll deal with this. It was well publicised. Thogden was in there, giving it large, etc. Rory Jennings was at it, wasn't he? And Petr Cech left when Todd Bowley came in. So one line of Tuchel's defence, not just from a public's perspective, but probably from a board perspective as well, was taken away. And that was one of the elements I saw, that things at Chelsea were changing. They were taking over. Todd Bowley putting himself in charge of recruitment, which seemed odd. And it was some of the outgoings, right? The project of Timo Werner, Lukaku, who was brought in to solve a problem that has created an even bigger one. I don't know what was expected of Tuchel this season. Was Champions League a certainty? I didn't have to be in my top four. As you saw from the start of the video, where I smugly played my clip from the prediction video. Won't be including any clips of my Aston Villa thoughts, which should be said on that. But I felt like this was going to happen, and I felt like the disposable man at the top of the tree was Thomas Tuchel. Again, I mentioned before, is it fair? And is it actually, ultimately, maybe the right decision? Yeah, it probably is. But it's sort of like you've made this problem, so now you fix this problem, and now the pressure is on. Todd Bowley already in charge of Chelsea, following the Chelsea model of more managers, which again he's read the script perfectly, hasn't he? So here we are then. He removes Tuchel. Who comes in next? But let's talk about the Tuchel situation. I can't tell you. And I've watched every Chelsea game this season, so I'm coming from it from that perspective. I can't tell you what a Chelsea goal looks like. If I had to force myself, it's a Reece James cross and something. But if you think of Liverpool and City, right, over recent years, and Tottenham under Conte now, and Manchester United and Arsenal, I can now see, because of the way that Ten Hag has changed style and the way that Arsenal are playing under Arteta, I can see how those teams, the elite teams in the division, score goals. Picture a Chelsea goal. You can only think of Reece James, but that's not necessarily the plan for Chelsea. And without a striker, again, without filling the hole, we've talked about it in these videos time and time again, that's the problem. And bringing in Aubameyang and playing him against Dynamo Zagreb is not going to be the solution. If you haven't trained it all of pre-season, you haven't played it throughout the league season so far, what do you expect? But to bring and highlight, really, some of the issues at Chelsea, and we'll just flash through some of these. Keep an eye on the heat map, of course. Focus on Chelsea's Thomas Tuchel. Against Tottenham, it wasn't horrendous. The space was filled. But then against some of these other sides, the gap that Chelsea leave in attacking areas, in central areas, that one's hilarious with Southampton. One against West Ham, again, a similar situation. Against Zagreb, They obviously bring in Aubameyang and they fill the gap a little bit. But you're changing, again, stylistically, you're changing how you want to play very, very early on in the league season. And if it doesn't work, and it's not working, and again, we sort of come to the results of Thomas Tuchel, and we look at what's happened there. They started off pretty consistently, a winning against Everton, a draw against Tottenham, not too bad. The defeats to Leeds highlighted all of the problems. A team that were willing to work harder, that appeared more motivated than a Chelsea team, and that sort of result can't happen if you're Chelsea manager, regardless of how well Leeds play. It can't happen. Switching up to a 4-4-2 where they beat a despondent Leicester, but I think me and 10 random people could beat them at the moment, so I can't give much credence to that. Southampton, similar to Leeds, they lost to a team that wanted it more. They get a scrappy win against West Ham to settle things. Again, it's a little system change, but a strikerless system change really, with Pulisic and Sterling playing through the middle. And then Dynamo Zagreb, of course, they've lost 1-0 in their first Champions League game. If you're going to appoint a new manager, and no disrespect to the likes of Fulham and Salzburg, do it quickly, because you're not going to find many easier games than that. You don't want the manager coming in when he has to play Liverpool first game, and then a tricky Palace game, and then Milan. Feet under the table time in an away game at Fulham. I know it's a derby, but again, win that, you get people on side very quickly. Although, have they been talking to someone yet? Ultimately, I think Chelsea have been stylistically confused from the moment the season started. And you may argue there was points in last season where they went through a similar thing. Lukaku, the big issue. And that obviously brings into question Thomas Tuchel's man management. He hasn't got the best out of the players that were brought in initially to solve some of Chelsea's problems. And if you're going to trust him with new players, and again, the same issues are arising, there's talk of unrest at Chelsea, is he the guy to take them forward? Arguably not. But it does feel a bit unfair that, again, it was to me, they created this environment, and then when it didn't work, have said, well, thanks for everything, but it's time to go. And it feels a little brutal. It feels a little harsh. They're not having like a terrible league season by any account. They're still competitive. They've still got a chance to be within the mix of what happens this season. And you'd argue they're still very much contenders for the Champions League. They're ahead of Liverpool as things stand, right? On 10 points, 3 points off Brighton, but that's no disgrace with the way that they've played. And they're in the top 6. But of course, maybe they want an idea and a philosophy that gets the best out of the new signings they've made. They've brought in Fofana, they've brought in Koulibaly. You leave yourself in a weird situation if you're the next manager of Chelsea now, because of those additions and because Thiago Silva's there, whoever comes in is sort of forced into playing a 3. I can't see a world where you drop either of your 2 big new signings, or arguably your best defender, despite the additions of Fofana and Koulibaly. With Thiago Silva, you've brought in 2 left backs, the likes of Cucurella's there now, with Ben Chilwell, of course, who was brought in a few years ago, and Reece James on that right hand side should start every game. So that stylistically, it sort of pigeonholes you a little bit. But again, whether it's players that Thomas Tuchel wanted or Chelsea frankly needed from players that had left the club, blimey, there's not a lot of wiggle room for change there unless you make a big decision on one of your defenders, which arguably leaves one of them pretty unhappy. So where do Chelsea go from here? In terms of the next manager they're likely to bring in, the odds are changing all the time, as is evident from this graph here. Graham Pochettino or Mauricio Pochettino. I like to combine the two. I don't know, maybe they were worried that Villa are going to get Poch, and they decided we should do this quickly. Some of the other names on the list: Mourinho, Rodgers, Simeone. I don't see any of those happening. Zidane would be amazing. I can't see that happening, but goodness me. Graham Potter there looks like the big favourite. And ultimately, that's going to be a question then of, would Graham Potter... There's certain clubs in the Premier League right now that I don't think Potter would leave for, right? Say Leicester depart with Brendan Rodgers. I don't think he goes there. Say Lampard leaves Everton. Straight back at Chelsea. No, so leaves Everton. Again, I don't necessarily see that happening either. And again, so similar with Villa, I don't see Potter taking that job. But if there's a team right now that suits Chelsea more, or a manager, that suits Chelsea more than Potter, I don't know who that manager is. And they would be able to offer him life-changing money in terms of a wage. Again, he's at Brighton, he won't be on an extortionate amount. He'd be well paid, but not to the levels that he would be generationally at Chelsea. And he probably gets a payoff anyway if it doesn't work. So again, go there. It's between him and Poch for me. Again, I don't think Zidane comes into the conversation. It would be a massive statement if they went and got him. And by the time this video comes out, they may have appointed them. So bear that in mind. I think we'll see an approach for Potter I think we'll see an approach for Poch, and I think there'll be a conversation and a battle. And it's whether Potter wants to give up what he's got. And that's the big question now for Chelsea. Can they tempt Graham Potter? Does he want to enter an environment that hasn't worked for the man before him, but does he also have the character and the belief in himself that he can be the man to change this and make it work? And that would be huge. For Poch, I think he'd want back in the London game. I think that it would be a good appointment for Chelsea. It's probably the safer choice because we've never seen Potter at a higher level. And obviously at Brighton, Potter's got everything he wants there. Even though players have left, he's still managing to get out incredible performances. No one can give him more credit so far this season. So who would I pick out of the two? I think you do gamble on Graham Potter. As much as I think Poch is the safer option. And I think the irony of them getting another manager that's been swallowed up by the PSG machine, I don't know. I feel like they've been burnt. So they're going to go for, like, Potter seems like the obvious choice. Young English. I say young English. It makes sense, doesn't it? Okay, they play a similar style of football. He would probably want Danny Welbeck to join, but I could see Brozier playing a lot more. Or, of course, they've got Aubameyang now. Again, that big physical presence, runners from midfield. The Chelsea squad is hilariously set up to play like Brighton. Cucurella's already there. I mean, what more do you need? I would feel for Ben Chilwell. It's a really interesting dynamic now of what happens at Chelsea. Where would you go? The questions for you in the comments are, is this the right move? Did you see it coming? And what next? Wowzers. This is early. Did anyone have Tuchel, first manager to go? Maybe me. But yeah, I enjoyed this. Not as much as Chelsea fans did. Again, Chelsea fans, I want to hear from you most of all. Thoughts? I'm fascinated to know. I'll be in the comment section replying to everybody. If you enjoyed the video, of course, leave a like. If you want to see more, make sure you're subscribed, as we'll do more breaking news if it's this big in the future. Before we end the video, I'm just going to make sure they've not appointed anyone, because that would be embarrassing, wouldn't it? Let's just take a look here. There is no. Okay. See you soon. The look back will be back on Monday. Bye-bye.